Some market data and some recent headlines are showing that chief diversity officers are leaving their roles in droves. There's a lot of reasons behind this. We're going to unpack it a little bit. It's a hot issue. It's an emotionally charged issue, but we're not going to shy away from it. Let's get into it. Hey folks, Mark here from The Rational Workforce. Thanks so much for joining us. If you're a first timer, welcome. We hope you like what you see. If you're coming back, thanks so much for returning. If you haven't already, click that subscribe button, click the bell. It's only going to help us grow the channel faster, and I appreciate everything you can do. One of the things that we started this channel to do was to talk about issues that were potentially emotionally charged, look at them through the view of a worker or the workforce, and give you a point of view that you may not be hearing from other places. So, this topic we're going to talk about around diversity, equity, and inclusion, it's a hot one and it's an emotionally charged one, but we don't want to shy away from it. That said, we do want to approach this and anything we talk about on the channel with respect, and that means respecting the opinions of others. So if you're here checking it out, I ask you to please don't leave flaming comments in the comment section. I know it's a big ask from the internet, but we're just trying to explore things and get all the different views out on the table so we can have a discussion, figure things out, learn from each other, maybe get a different point of view. So I ask you that humbly. I appreciate it. Thank you in advance, but let's jump into it. So this comes from a recent Wall Street Journal article, and it says, "The rise and fall of the chief diversity officer. Diversity execs hit the exits as company priorities shift." So we dig in a little bit deeper. 2 years ago, chief diversity officers, or CDOs, were some of the hottest hires in the executive ranks. Now they're feeling increasingly left out in the cold. The reason why is you had companies like Netflix and Disney and Warner Brothers Discovery and actually a bunch of others have recently said that their high-profile DE&I executives are going to be leaving their jobs. So, for those of you who aren't familiar with it, this is a relatively new role in the world of HR and in the world of executive ranks. And, I think a lot of it was driven just by some of the social issues that have hit the forefront over the past several years. And there's been a lot of hiring around it, and there's been a lot of action and discussion around it too, for sure. And I think that the spirit of it is an excellent thing, right? Because as an employer, as an executive, you want to have a diverse workforce because it reflects the diversity of people that you're trying to serve, right? So that's ethnicities, that's genders, that's gender identities, that's sexualities, right? All of it, right? Where you start to run into problems is when you have organizations that all think and look and feel the same way. And I think that part of that dynamic might be driving some of the frustrations that these individuals are experiencing. But let's dig in a little bit deeper around that. So why are these folks leaving? Same Wall Street Journal article. A new analysis from employment data provider Live Data Technologies shows that CDOs have been more vulnerable to layoffs than their human resources counterparts, experiencing 40% higher turnover, and their job searches are also taking longer. Now, I think that if you've got friends who are out of work, despite what the headlines say, for as much as companies complain about not being able to find the right candidates, I still know friends who are out looking for gigs, and it's taking a lot longer than expected. They're also not necessarily getting responses from the companies they're applying to, just letting them know one way or another. The recruiting system is broken in a lot of organizations. That's a topic for another day. But it's interesting to note, some of the other things that people are talking about here is that in interviews, current and former CDOs said company executives at times didn't want to change hiring or promotion processes, despite initially telling CDOs they were hired to improve the talent pipeline. The quick about face shows that company enthusiasm for diversity initiatives hasn't always proved durable, leaving some diversity officers now questioning their career path. So again, regardless of where you come down on this issue, if you're hired to do a job, you're not allowed to do the job, or if the company has a little bit of a change of heart, making that reason that you were hired not necessarily as valid or as urgent as before, you've got to empathize with the folks that are in that role, right? And you also have to question the company's commitment, right? A lot of these organizations will be super vocal and visible during Black Pride Month. They'll be super vocal and visible during Pride. But when the rubber hits the road and when they get pushed, they stand by that. That's the test of an organization that believes in its ideals or an organization that's just trying to, say, cash in on a demographic. And I think there's an awful lot of that that's going on. But to kind of go back and talk about the diversity topic as a whole, it's not necessarily just all about executives and companies that are kind of losing their stomach for some of this stuff. It looks like there are some internal pushback items too. So let's go to another report. This is from the Pew Research Center. This is a report they ran in May about DE&I in the workplace. And I'm going to scroll down here because I think this is important. Relatively small shares of workers place a lot of importance at diversity in the workplace. About 3 in 10 say it's extremely or very important to them to work somewhere where a mix of employees of different races and ethnicities or ages. Roughly a quarter say the same about having a workplace with an equal mix of men and women. And only 18% say this about a mix of employees of different sexual orientations. So a couple things could be happening here. One is people who have opinions of that nature or workplaces that have those types of dynamics. The employer themselves may have done a poor job of articulating the benefits of why you want to have a diverse workforce, right? There could have been issues with the implementation of some of these DE&I policies. I'm going to get to that in a minute because I have a feeling that has a lot to do with it. The other part of it too could just be that employees want to show up, they want to go to work, they want to have an opportunity to do their work and get their paycheck and go home. And a lot of these other bigger, broader issues may be important on paper, but when it comes down to it, is it something that they feel is critical path for them in their careers? Now, I mentioned on some previous episodes that I've actually put my money where my mouth is. I commissioned a analyst group to do some research around this topic and get specifically some deeper insights into how employees feel about these topics. And on some levels, we got results that are very similar to what the Pew research showed. But we also got some results in that showed that individuals that some of these programs were set up to help actually didn't feel like it significantly accelerated their career. So although I think that organizations, by and large, had their hearts in the right place, I think they fell down on execution. And some of this movement that you're seeing, these executives being moved out of these roles, might be part of that, right? Might be execution was an issue. So I'm just putting it out there. We're going to roll out these results. We're just doing our final dotting I's and crossing T's on those research reports, and I promise I'll share it with everyone when it's available. But, I think that, and this is opinion, this isn't based on data, but this is where my gut is at. I think there are a couple of reasons why you're seeing pushback on DE&I as defined, and it might be some harsh realities that organizations might not want to live up to. But again, I'm going to respectfully put it out there in this channel. Let's talk about it. So one is, I feel like when we talk about diversity and inclusion, there's these grand discussion points, right? Like, we want everyone to feel included and we embrace everybody and we want all different viewpoints. And I think that in reality, that's not necessarily the case. Let me give you an example. I'm the dad of an autistic child. As a result, I have become very active in neurodiverse advocacy. And I also do a lot of work with HR and HR technology companies. So when we're in these roundtables or we're in these discussions where they're talking about DE&I, I'm kind of that little pain in the ass in the back of the room that's always raising his hand, asking about neurodiversity and how does that fit into the plans. And one of two things generally happens. One is questions ignored. If I'm in a chat, I ask that question, I'll see the question before mine and the question after mine get taken, but skipped over mine. I get it. The other one, I actually have a lot more respect for folks that say this. Will say, yeah, we think that's important, but it's also not critical right now. Like, that's something we'll get to later. I don't agree with it. I think that the neurodiverse workforce is an absolutely incredibly underutilized and untapped source of talent. That said, I appreciate honesty in any form. So for the folks who have answered that directly, I appreciate you. My feeling, though, is that the opposite is happening in some of these discussions in terms of we're pushing for diversity and inclusion, but there's really almost like an orthodoxy of thought that's being put forward there, right? Part of that survey that we did, we asked some questions around, do you feel comfortable voicing your opinions if it runs counter to that of your employer? Or, do you feel like your job would be in jeopardy if you voiced positions that are counter to your employer? And the results were surprising. And I think that, taking this out into bigger issues, right? Like I think when Roe versus Wade was struck down, you saw a tremendous outpouring of commentary and indignation from employers that are saying that they're going to, fight it and find their own ways around it for their employees. And that's wonderful if that's what your employer subscribes to. But what about the employees of those organizations that maybe don't feel the same way? Like, do you think that you're creating a more inclusive environment for them? Do you think you're embracing ideological diversity if those people should, either directly or indirectly feel like they should be silenced? I think that goes against the grain. I think that goes against what the essence of a DE&I initiative should be all about. So, there might be some of that pushback or some of the general meh attitude about these things could be rooted in that. I also think that when you talk about creating opportunities for others, and this is more probably the equity part of it, it's got to be all encompassing. It's got to go right back to the recruiting and hiring process all the way through. And, part of this opinion is probably tinged by how I grew up. I grew up in a minority majority city. It doesn't make any difference what color, ethnicity, you name it. When you're all in kind of a challenged economic environment, that's kind of a great equalizer, right? So, some of these programs, I think there are better ways to go about it to create opportunities for everyone that's more action oriented and will actually produce more results and is maybe not just based on things like ethnicity and things of that nature. I don't see a lot of discussions around creating opportunities for people within certain economic pockets across the board. And that feels a little more limiting to me. And I think that what's exciting is the market itself is evolving to correct for some of these things. So, for example, we're seeing a lot of pushback now in the traditional collegiate path to the workplace, right? Colleges are becoming ridiculously expensive. I've got 2 kids in college right now, and we're doing okay financially, but we're not quite at ramen noodles level, but it's expensive to put 2 kids through school. So, and they're also going to be taking out student loans, right? I had student loans for myself, and I worked 2 jobs while I was in college. Like, it's a lot, and people are questioning whether that's the right path for them. You just saw the new Supreme Court rulings on being able to use certain non-academic criterion in accepting people into schools that got struck down. So you have even more people who might be saying, maybe this isn't right for me. Fortunately, some progressive employers are kind of waking up to it. And here's another article that recently popped. HR's latest disruptive trend: goodbye college degrees, hello certifications. This is from Human Resources Executive, great magazine. It talks about a survey of 300 U.S. recruiters, and 41% said their employers have dropped degree requirements. That's fantastic, right? Like, if you take away the need for someone to go into debt just to have the honor of working for your company, how much more are you going to open the floodgate of great candidates? And if those candidates can opt to go for a cheaper certificate program, or if they can do any of these boot camp type training courses, like, you're getting skills. Like, screw the degree. You're getting skills. You're getting people that are skilled and trained and are dialed in to the job that they want to do, and you're removing barriers in a very real and meaningful way. And I'm excited to see these types of things happening. I think this is going to open it up for all sorts of people, but we still have miles to go before we sleep in creating environments within organizations where everyone truly feels like they have a voice. And if you're an employer and you talk about, we want you to push back on policies if you don't agree and things like that, you've got to make it happen, and you've got to do it in ways more than just saying the words. You actually have to create an environment where people don't feel like they're bullied or their livelihoods are going to be threatened. If you put out a policy and someone says, you know what, I don't want to do that. We started to see it a little bit over the past couple months with companies like, Google, that was sponsoring a drag show that some Christian employees pushed back on, and the company respected it. I did a brief story on it, so go check my archives and you'll find it. But, hats off to organizations that are at least starting to hear other viewpoints that are truly making their company someplace everyone feels good to work for. So with that, a bit of a rambling video today, but I wanted to put that on your radar screen. I wanted to get out a couple of points of view, and I want to hear your points of view. Again, please, respectfully, let's hear it. Put it in the comments below. If you have a differing viewpoint, if you agree with it, if you have personal experiences, we really want to hear about it. And if you like what you saw, click the bell, click like, click subscribe, do all the things. Help us grow the channel. We are growing at a really nice clip now. I can't tell you how much I appreciate it, but we'd love to grow a lot faster so we can keep producing content like this. Coming up soon, we've got a couple of interviews that are in the bag, and we're also going to have some of those survey results for you, so keep your eyes peeled. And again, click that bell and you'll know as soon as a new video comes out. All right. Thanks so much for tuning in, folks. I hope you have an amazing day. We'll catch you on the next one. Bye-bye.